We broke up over a stupid text. I was angry, impulsive, and now he's gone. Forever. And I never got to say I'm sorry. This is not just a breakup story. It's a confession about guilt, grief, and the words we leave unsaid on tears and truth. We believe every hidden feeling, every buried regret deserves a voice. Confessions are more than stories. They're how we heal, connect, and sometimes warn others before it's too late. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to Tears and Truth. Your support lets us keep telling the stories that are too raw, too real, and too emotional for most channels. We speak the truths people carry in silence. I used to believe breakups were clean. You cry, maybe scream, maybe ghost each other, but eventually, life just moves on. Until Daniel. We met at a tiny music festival outside Melbourne. I was there on a short work stint from Toronto, trying to escape the cold and the mess of my last relationship. He was local, warm, spontaneous, and he danced like he didn't care who watched. For the first time in years, I laughed without trying. I felt like myself again. We weren't perfect. We had those cultural misunderstandings. Me wanting space, him needing constant connection. I was career-driven, he was more about the now. He made me late for meetings. I made him feel like an afterthought. But we were learning, growing. And then came the text. It was stupid. We had an argument over something so trivial I'm ashamed to even say it. He'd forgotten to call me after a gig. I'd been waiting for hours, phone in hand, already halfway through drafting angry messages. When he finally texted, "Sorry, just crashed at Liam's after the show. Was dead tired." I snapped. I wrote, "You always do this. You make me feel like I don't matter. I'm done, Daniel. Don't text me again." I hit send before I could stop myself. My phone buzzed immediately, but I didn't open it. I wanted to punish him, make him feel the silence. 2 days passed. I convinced myself I was right, that I needed to stand my ground. Then came the call. It was his sister. Her voice cracked through the line. I could barely understand the words. "Daniel, car accident. On the highway. He's gone." My knees buckled. The world spun. Gone? No, that wasn't possible. He was just here. He had just sent a text. I opened his last message. The one I had ignored. It said, "I'm sorry, love. I messed up. You mean everything to me. Can we talk tomorrow? Please don't give up on us." That was the last thing he ever said to me. I didn't sleep the night I found out. I couldn't. The moment I read that final text, it was like someone had reached inside my chest and crushed my heart with their bare hands. "I'm sorry, love. Please don't give up on us." The words echoed in my mind, louder than my screams. I sat on the floor of my apartment, legs trembling, sobbing into my palms. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run to him, to shake him awake, to tell him I didn't mean it, that I was just hurt, that I didn't want it to be over. But there was no undoing it. No do-overs. No second chances. I called his sister back. Through tears and guilt and trembling hands, I asked the questions I was too afraid to hear answers to. When did it happen? Was he driving? Was it instant? She told me Daniel had left Liam's place that morning, planning to come see me. He never made it. His car collided with a semi on a wet stretch of road near Yarra Glen. It was quick, they said. He likely didn't feel a thing. But I did. I felt everything: grief, guilt, anger. At myself. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Worse, I didn't get to say I was sorry. The days after were a blur. I booked a flight back to Melbourne. I needed to be there, even if I didn't know what that meant. I hadn't met his parents. We'd only been together 9 months, but every day of those 9 months felt louder than years I'd lived in silence before him. I didn't know what to wear to a funeral for someone who still texted me, "Miss you," emojis just last week. I didn't know how to explain to people why I was crying so hard, when technically, I'd broken up with him. His mom greeted me at the service. Her eyes were puffy, her smile tight. She hugged me like she knew everything, even though I knew she didn't. Not the text, not the fight, not the guilt I carried like poison in my veins. "He talked about you so much," she whispered. "We thought he was finally going to settle down. He was planning something. He even bought a ring." Couldn't breathe. A ring? I wanted to scream that I wanted to go back in time and throw my phone into the ocean before sending that text. I wanted to undo everything. The service. His friends spoke about his wild spirit, his music, his heart. But I kept thinking about that message. The one where I said, "Don't text me again." How do you forgive yourself for something like that? I flew back to Toronto a week later, but I left a piece of myself buried in the red dirt of Australia. That I stopped texting, that I stopped dating, that I stopped living. Really, I went to work. I smiled when I had to, but every night, when the world got quiet, his name screamed inside my mind. I kept reading that message over and over. "I'm sorry, love. You mean everything to me. Please don't give up on us." And I realized something that made it even worse. He hadn't died thinking I loved him. He died wondering if I hated him. That's the part that haunted me. Grief is strange. People talk about it like it's something linear: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But mine wasn't like that. Mine was a loop. A haunting that I'd wake up each morning and forget, for just a moment, that he was gone. And then it would hit me again, like a punch to the chest. Again and again and again. The text I sent, the text was the last thing he read from me. Every time I picked up my phone, I'd hover over our chat thread. I still couldn't bring myself to delete it. It felt like if I erased the conversation, I'd be erasing him. So instead, I started typing messages I'd never send. Things like, "I didn't mean it. I was scared you'd stop caring first, so I pushed you away. You didn't deserve that text. I love you. God, I loved you so much." I poured all of it into that empty message box. I never hit send. I knew he'd never read them, but I needed to say the words anyway. It was the only thing keeping me from collapsing completely. 3 months passed. Winter in Toronto is brutal, but this year it felt cruel. The streets were cold, gray. So was I. I stopped going out. I stopped playing music, which Daniel and I used to do on video calls together. He on his guitar, me on my old keyboard. We had once written a silly love song together, half joking, half real. I found the lyrics in my notebook and tore the page out, pressing it between the pages of a book he once told me to read. The Alchemist at IT felt like my life had split in two, before Daniel, and after Daniel. One day, while scrolling Instagram in a haze, I stumbled upon a quote. "Unspoken words are the ghosts that haunt the living." It hit me like a slap. That's what this was. I wasn't just grieving Daniel. I was haunted by everything I didn't say, haunted by my pride, my fear, my silence. I knew I needed to let it out. So I started writing. Not in a text this time. Not on a screen. But by hand. On paper. A letter. "Dear Daniel, I don't know where you are now, or if you can hear me, but I need to believe you can. Because if not, I might drown in this guilt." I was angry. That night, when I sent that text, I was tired of feeling like I didn't matter. But the truth is, you always made me feel like I did. I just couldn't see it in that moment. I wanted you to chase me. I wanted you to fight for me. And you did. You texted me. You said sorry. You wanted to fix it. And I ignored you. I let my ego win. And now, you're gone. I'm sorry, Daniel. For everything. I miss you. I love you. I always will. Hell, I folded the letter and slipped it into an envelope. I didn't know what to do with it at first. Then, I remembered a tree we'd walked past once, just outside the Melbourne Botanic Gardens. He joked about carving our initials into it one day. I booked a flight. Yes, just to deliver a letter to a tree. My friends thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. But something inside me said this was the only way I'd survive this. I had to speak my truth, even if he could never respond. The flight to Melbourne was quiet, just like my thoughts. No music. No movies. Just me, a window seat, and the letter in my purse, creased from being opened, reread, and refolded a dozen times. When I landed, the air hit me differently. Warmer than Toronto's frostbitten spring, but heavier somehow. Like the place still remembered him. I took a cab straight to the Botanic Gardens. Every part of that city carried a memory now. The corner cafe where we shared our first kiss. The tram stop where he made up a song about my laugh. Even the market where we bought mangoes and fought over who picked the ripest one. It all felt alive. And it all felt wrong without him. The walk to the tree took longer than I remembered. My feet felt heavy, like they knew this moment was more than symbolic. It was closure. Or maybe an attempt at it. The tree was still there, tall, strong, unchanged. I sat down beside it and took out the letter. My fingers trembled as I read it aloud. My voice cracked halfway through, and by the time I said, "I love you. I always will," I was sobbing. But no one stopped me. People walked by. Some glanced. But this was Melbourne. People cried under trees here sometimes that I placed the letter in a hollow at the base of the trunk, securing it with a small stone. He would have liked that. He used to say trees held memories, like old souls rooted in the earth. Listening that I sat there for hours, letting the silence speak. I didn't need words anymore. I just needed peace. When I finally stood up, I didn't feel lighter, but I did feel clearer. That night, I checked into a tiny Airbnb near the beach. I didn't tell anyone I was in town. Not even his sister. This trip was just for me and him. For the space between us that could never be closed, but could be honored that I walked to the shoreline with my shoes in hand, waves lapping at my feet, moonlight catching the curls of water like silver ribbons. He used to say, "Everything feels smaller by the ocean, except love." I whispered one final "I'm sorry" into the wind, and I swear, for a second the waves paused just long enough for me to believe he'd heard it. The next morning I visited the cemetery. I brought a single sunflower, his favorite. There was no one else around, just me and the wind and the grave. That I knelt beside the stone and spoke softly. "I don't know if this helps, but I forgive you too, for the silences, for the things left unsaid. And I hope, wherever you are, you forgive me back." I placed the sunflower down and smiled through tears. It was the first real smile I'd made since he died. Not because I was okay, but because I was starting to accept that I might be one day. I stood up, touched the cold surface of his name, and whispered, "Goodbye." On the plane home, I didn't feel haunted. Not exactly. The pain was still there, but now, it lived beside the memories, not inside the wound. Back in Toronto, life felt different. Still heavy, but somehow softer around the edges. That I realized grief isn't something you conquer or move past. It's something you carry, like a secret tattoo beneath your skin, shaping you in quiet ways you don't always see. After that trip, I started to open up again. Slowly. I joined a support group for people who lost loved ones suddenly. Hearing others' stories, their raw pain and courage, made me feel less alone in mine. I started writing again. Not just letters I'd never send, but real stories. Stories of heartbreak and forgiveness. Stories about the power of saying what we mean before it's too late. Because if Daniel taught me anything, it's this: words matter. The way we hold back or speak out can change lives. Even save them. I began sharing parts of my story online, anonymously at first, then with my name attached. The messages I received surprised me. People thanking me for my honesty, for showing that grief and guilt don't have to be shameful. Slowly, I started to heal. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. Daniel's memory lives in the little things. His favorite songs, the way he smiled when he thought no one was watching, and even the silly texts he sent to make me laugh. Most of all, I carry his last words with me. Not the angry ones I sent, but the ones he wrote back. "I'm sorry, love. You mean everything to me. Please don't give up on us." Those words taught me to hold my loved ones a little closer, to never let anger bury love. Today, I want to say this to anyone watching. If you're holding back an apology, a confession, or a simple "I love you" because of pride, fear, or anger, please don't wait. Don't let silence be your last message. Text that person. Call them. Write a letter. Say the thing that feels impossible. Because sometimes, that message is the one that saves a soul. Or at least, gives us peace. Daniel, if you're out there somewhere, know that I'm sorry. I love you, and I'm trying to live in a way that honors what we had. Thank you for teaching me about love, loss, and the courage to say what matters most. Thank you for listening to my confession. If the story moved you, please hit that subscribe button on Tears and Truth. There are so many more stories to share. Stories of heartbreak, hope, and healing. And remember, you're never alone in your tears.